There has been a suggestion that we get started with the public meeting, if that's council's wish to move forward. If so, we will need someone to serve as an acting chair, and I will need a motion for that. Councillor Miller? Okay. A seconder, Councillor Wheat. All in favor? Councillor Cardy, you want to assume the chair?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Brant County Special Meeting Agenda. We have an agenda here. Is this the one for now? No, that's following. This is the one for now. Planning staff meeting. Attendance has been taken, noting that Councillor Pierce will be late. Councillor Powell, I don't know if he'll be attending or not. Haven't heard, and his worship's on his way. Approval of the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Boma. Seconded by Councillor Coleman. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Please declare pecuniary interest if required. Introduction to proposed provincial changes to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. There is a recommendation in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, Brandon is prepared to make a brief presentation, just setting a context.
Yep.
If that's all right.
Thank you, Brandon. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brandon Hassan, the policy planner for the County of Brant as of the last 3 months or so. So this project has been on my desk over the last little while, so I'm happy to present to you sort of the staff recommendations and the overall summary of the proposed growth plan. Essentially, this meeting was called in order to collect public comments, in order to tie them together with the staff recommendations and comments that will be going to the province later this month. Just a note, there's a lot of info and imagery that the province used in their formal town hall meetings. I've included them in this presentation, but in no way, shape, or form am I advocating for the province or speaking on behalf of them. This is mainly strictly on behalf of planning staff for the County of Brant. So as some of you may know, the province is currently going through a coordinated review of a multitude of plans, all of them highlighted on the screen there. And essentially this just allows for more consistency to be reviewed between all of the plans, especially the policies, the language, definitions, and links to the provincial policy statement. I'd like to point out that the Greenbelt plan and policies that are in place thereof are not currently situated within the County of Brant at this time. So really it's just going to be a review of the growth plan and the proposed changes in policies. So just to give you a high-level context of where the Golden Horseshoe is situated, sort of the southeast section of the province of Ontario as it borders Lake Ontario, and you can kind of see it there. Stretching far north as Orillia, far east as Peterborough, and the county, which is situated all the way to the west, shown there. And then again, it's only these areas in question that we'll be kind of reviewing and discussing. And you can see that the county is part of this proposed growth that is anticipated into the future. So this is just, again, a future concept of what the growth plan will sort of outline, being a lot of the built-up boundary areas being in the purple, and then the greenbelt area spanning throughout in the green areas. Again, the county is situated here. You can see that the city of Brantford has an urban growth center located within the center of it. Paris, St. George, and Burford are identified as built-up areas, which I will get into. So just to give you some numbers in terms of context, the Greater Golden Horseshoe at this time is roughly a population of 11.9 million, whereas the County of Brant is 36,000 people. Spanning into 2041, that'll grow to 13.4 million, and then the county will grow to 57,000 in terms of jobs, 4.5 million currently in the Horseshoe, 16,000 in the County of Brant, and then again growing to 6.2 million. and then 26,000 into the horizon of 2041. And again, at the bottom of the screen, there's just a note there that the GGH generates basically a quarter of Canada's gross domestic product, so that's something to definitely be taken into consideration.
It's freaking huge.
So I'm roughly just going to go through quickly the goals that the proposed plan is hoping to accomplish. I'll go through these goals each individually in more detail. So you've got building complete communities, supporting agriculture, protecting natural heritage and water, integrating infrastructure, addressing climate change, and improving the plan's overall implementation. So in terms of building complete communities, community hubs is a big standpoint in terms of this goal and objective, giving places for people to go and for services to be provided in centralized areas. Density targets, so that generally covers where to grow in the built-up areas. Intensification targets, which covers how to grow in the greenfield areas, so that's areas outside of areas that are primarily serviced by municipal services. Transit station areas doesn't really apply to the county, but it is a goal as a whole for the plan itself. Complete streets, which is a very big part of the development and community building process, encourages walkability and it basically turns informal pathways into formal pathways for safety reasons. Employment, another big piece, as I noted, employment projections are anticipated to grow significantly over the plan's horizon. Cultural heritage resources, which the county has many of, and then development outside of settlement areas, which basically talks about limiting rural development and focusing growth within the built boundaries to concentrate development. Supporting agriculture, which is a big piece, obviously, of what identifies the county of Brant as a rural community. The province is proposing a number of different agricultural system mapping in addition to support network mapping. It's kind of similar to how the GRCA has environmental hazard mapping, like floodplains, wetlands, and protected areas, so that'll be sort of tied in to what the province is rolling out. Should I hold?
Thank you. For a council meeting, quite unusual. Sorry to be late. Traffic. Welcome. Can you tell me what transpired?
We have just approved the agenda, and now the policy planner is just giving some context to the public meeting.
And this item?
That's not an item for tonight.
Just continue.
What are we doing?
He's just continuing his presentation on the provincial growth plan.
Provincial growth plan.
Yep.
Please continue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, following down the list in terms of viability, essentially what it does is promotes existing and new farming operation to encourage their long-term prosperity throughout the province. Existing and planned corridors, essentially what that speaks to is mitigating impacts of any new and proposed road networks that may have an impact on agricultural systems. There will be a requirement for agricultural impact assessments for settlement boundary expansions. In terms of aggregate operation rehabilitation, this is basically linked with the policies in the provincial policy statement that requires new operations to restore aggregate operations to an agriculturally satisfactory condition. Protecting natural heritage and water, another big piece that the proposed plan is trying to cover. Similar to the agricultural mapping, a natural heritage system mapping will also be rolled out by the province. In terms of site alteration, monitoring and controlling any activity that occurs without proper clearances or permits is definitely something that needs to be taken in consideration. At this time, I can say that County of Brant staff are currently looking at completing a site alteration bylaw. The timeline for that I don't believe has been discussed or situated to this point. Sub-watershed plans and water resource system planning has been taking place through a variety of Conservation Authority meetings. I've attended a number of them put on by the GRCA, and they've essentially just drawn on what the province is proposing and tied those planning policies all together into one sort of package. And then finally, excess soil. The province is developing a framework for native and non-native soils that are transferred between sites to reduce contamination. And we see that a lot in new developments that take place where records of site condition need to be undertaken. We need to know that the soil that's being used is obviously safe and won't cause any harm to any newly proposed developments in the county and the province as a whole. Integrating infrastructure, integrated planning is also tied to a variety of big pieces that the growth plan is trying to accomplish. Lighting, heating, water, sanitary, and storm systems should all be planned all at the same time and sort of one after the other, so they can really be situated in places that are properly serviced for the long-term development of certain areas. Wastewater and water servicing, again, we want to ensure that there's adequate supply for the current demand. Transit system planning, again, as I said, not a huge piece for the county at this point in time. Mostly the other pieces of the province where they have transportation corridors in place. And then again, prioritization of integrating infrastructure. As I was saying, going back to complete communities, we want to limit growth outside of service areas through a phasing of development strategy, which I will get to later on in terms of the staff recommendations. Addressing climate change, another huge goal that I think the province is really looking into on a variety of levels. There has to be adaptation goals to realize how we are reducing these emissions. Again, one single house increases the impermeable surfaces that the province has to deal with on a daily basis. Cars increase carbon dioxide emissions, and then again, new roads that are paved, parking lots, all increase heat island effects, so those are all things that need to be taken into consideration. Mitigation and reduction targets are proposed in this new plan to monitor how, as a whole, these goals are being reduced. Low impact development is a very important piece to consider in all aspects of development, not only from start to finish, but even the beginning stages of considering proposals. And then finally, resilient infrastructures, as I was saying, making sure that they're placed in the appropriate locations. We want these services to last long into the future. And the difficulty is that it's the same land area that's being considered with a growing population, and the expectation is that it has to be maintained, if not limit the impacts. And then finally, the implementation of the plan, as you can see, it's planned the horizon to be into 2041. Every 5 years, a review of the schedules and dependencies will generally monitor the status and success of the plan and its policies that are included in the proposed growth plan. What we'd like to see and what the province is encouraging is that all stakeholders are included in the consultation process. Again, monitoring and performing that the goals and objectives of the plan are being accomplished, and then streamlining the policies and terminology to ensure that all the language in the plans is the same as other legislation. So in summary, you can kind of see there that alignment with other provincial documents is what ultimately the province is trying to achieve at this point. We want to plan for growth while eliminating the impacts. I'll get to in a second, but there's a difference between outer ring and inner ring requirements for growth, and it depends on a variety of variables such as population and location that determines where and how to grow sustainably. And will be, I guess, mandated to report on the success and the ability to implement the policies on a various number of objectives. And again, it's just basically for overall consistency of the 4 land use plans. So comments, as I said, were originally due at the end of September, just due to the vast number of comments that have been received by stakeholders, different municipalities, and the public. This commenting period has been pushed back until the end of the month. This is the contact information for the ministry conducting the review, and there's more information on their website. And in terms of the staff recommendations, which are included in the staff report, you can see there that at this time we are proposing 6 different recommendations. Number one, that the reduced intensification targets are requested at this time from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, that the reduced density targets are requested from the Minister as well, that Council requests from the Ministry for transition policies to be retained in the plan, which are currently in place now, but not shown in the proposed plan to deal with pending development applications. That staff prepare a phasing of development strategy, as I said, in terms of focusing growth and prioritizing it within the fully serviced settlement areas to be implemented, which directs and restricts growth in appropriate areas. Number 5, that staff prepares policies to be implemented which promote walkable streets to support complete communities. And finally, that staff prepare low-impact development and green infrastructure policies to support development proposals. And that's it.
To commence with, I'll take the opportunity to declare that I do not have a pecuniary interest in the provincial growth plan, and then move on to comments from members of council. Are there questions from members of council, first of all, regarding this report? Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question of where we are in the process. I know maybe the clerk can refresh me. We brought this up at planning. We approved it. Did we approve it at council, or did we leave it till tonight?
The recommendations were approved by planning, but were deferred at the September council meeting for one meeting cycle to allow for this public meeting.
Okay, so that's not written in our county stones. Okay, thank you.
So they will be going to be presented to council at the next council meeting in October?
Yes, October 25th.
Thank you. Councillor Baumann.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, to the planner, just curious, Brandon, if you could explain for everyone present why, just in number 1 and number 2, those are my only 2 questions, why were the reductions requested?
Thank you.
And from, I think it's 60 to 15 and 80 to 40. And where did those 2 recommendations come from? Just briefly, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The proposed plan allows municipalities within the outer ring, being us as one of them, to request lower targets and policies just purely based on our scale. And our official plan also covers these numbers quite accurately, so we feel that they're more suitable for our community versus the province as a whole.
Councillor Cardy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Brandon. Brandon, do you see any crossover issues between what housing and development's allowed to do now with high-density housing in areas where they're developing to what this potential new plan could do? Is there any issues of crossover in that, do you find?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't see really any issues. It's just really focusing on where and how to grow properly to ensure that we're using all of our resources properly. Again, there's a lot of areas in the county that are partially serviced or fully unserviced. So again, I think the point I made about the phasing of development strategy is something that can definitely be instituted at the county and help with our development process.
And the only reason why I ask is because I know in the planning department it's very hard to work with things that are going the way they are now, and I just don't want it to create any more hardships for the planners to do their jobs to be appropriate in that term, so.
Anyone else? Now, do we open it to the public at some point in time?
Yep.
Any other member of council wish to comment? One of the comments that several people have had is about the growth of our development areas, how they've been expanded considerably without seemingly discussion about it. And they have expanded, we know that. And in times it's hard to give the explanation of why they've been extended to the extent they have. But maybe that'll come up during discussion from individuals tonight. So this was arranged then as a public forum, I believe, is that correct? And that people can come up to the microphone and express their opinions. So is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forth and discuss some of these items that have been presented to you for information? Is there anyone prepared to do that? Yes, would you come up to the microphone, please? Welcome, please proceed when you're ready.
Push down? Yep. I wanted to thank council for having this meeting. I wanted to thank council for having this meeting. We really appreciate it. The province came out with a report after about a year and a half of taking feedback. I believe David Crombie had, it was a commission, David Crombie came and they met in different communities, and then the province came out with its coordinated review, draft coordinated review, May 10th. And so people have been submitting comments, and so have municipalities, so I really appreciate that you're having this open meeting, so thank you. The province reviewed 4 plans, but 2 apply to Brant County. And I wanted to welcome Brad as a new planner, but we've been at this a long time, Brad, so I might give you a bit of history. In fact, there's 2 plans that apply to Brant County if we read it closely, so I just wanted to introduce that. The province, this is what they heard, and I'm taking this right from their website. They heard that people want them to consider an expansion of the Greenbelt outside of the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, where there's important water resources that are under pressure from urban growth. And to do this, to protect this area, they wanted this documented with guidance. You probably, because you're talking with the GRCA, you know that they're doing mapping. So they wanted guidance documents, and they wanted to do mapping of the natural heritage and of the agricultural systems outside of the Greenbelt. So this is all talk about outside of the Greenbelt. It does apply to Brant County. We're right next to the Greenbelt. It stops at my farm laneway. The province's recommendations were to protect clean water. They really stressed that. And to add lands, as they grow the Greenbelt, within major urban river valleys to the Greenbelt. And also to set up a process for expanding the Greenbelt to protect key water. They keep talking about water. And also to have compact communities to support transit. And I would say, I would disagree with you, Brad, with due regard to you, but they are encouraging public transit in communities like Brant County and Brantford. So Brant County seems to only be commenting on the growth plan and the meeting in the paper, the notice. Again, I appreciate that you put it in there, but it only talked about the growth plan. But the province gave us 4 plans, and 2 of them apply to Brant County. So the province is saying, I might be repeating here a tiny bit, so I'll just jump over the 2 points. They talked about, I've mentioned that already, but also support agricultural viability, as Brad has mentioned, to preserve farmland, and to plan for climate change, and basically invest in a low carbon economy. So here's just some details. I think I'm repeating what Brad said, so I would just summarize. It's to curb sprawl and to reduce traffic gridlock. That's a key interest there. Here's intensification for, just to review, I need to review it from time to time. What does it mean? So basically, this is from the Greenbelt, this is from the coordinated review. They're talking about it meaning redevelopment, developing vacant and underutilized lots, infilling development, and expanding or converting existing buildings. So that's what we mean by intensification. What does density mean? Density applies to greenfield. And density, basically the province has recommended a higher density for greenfield. Greenfield is basically farmland that's being converted to development. That's what greenfield is. So our request to council, we've met and talked with a number of people throughout Tootla Heights, with CCOB, we've talked to those people, we've gone throughout the county, Linden, Adams, Johnson Road area, and through our listserv. And people really support the idea of smart growth principles, compact communities, protecting our precious natural heritage, water resources, and farmland. We're saying, don't ask the province for loopholes. Don't ask for reduced intensification or reduced density. It only will result in more sprawl, and sprawl costs money. People called me up last week from Tula Heights, and they said, look at the paper. The mayor's met, or John Utley in place of Mayor Friel and Mayor Eddy, and they're saying that taxes are going to go up because of the boundary thing. So people from Tula Heights are saying, look, it's going to cost more money. So I wanted to introduce this. Again, the province brought the report to the public and to municipalities May 10th. This is analysis from the county. They had a public consultation on the Greenbelt last December, during the winter, and this is analysis from somebody in the Tula Heights community. I'm taking this from Russ Kositz. So he analyzed all of these submissions, and this is his analysis. Of the letters, 88 of the letters that came in, 88% were for expanding the Greenbelt. 12% of the letters were against. The majority, he concludes, the majority of our community are in favor of growing the Greenbelt. And I believe he shared that with you. I can produce that again for any of you who would like that. I have the reference. Our request, though, as we look at the province and as they talk about water, we're looking more and more at water too. So we spent the whole summer, Sustainable Brant did, working with students and mapping, working with existing maps, mapping a blue belt for Brant County. We worked with the Ontario Headwaters Institute. We had somebody trained in GIS, and we worked with the GRCA staff and with their maps. And so that's just what I just told you there, okay? So this is what we're proposing. If we look at water, we're proposing that we have a Brant Blue Belt. And it basically looks at preserving the headwaters, source water, wellheads, IPZ, the IPZ areas where water is susceptible to contamination. The moraine, you can see the moraine is it has the fingers going down through the map there, coming from the north and heading sort of southwest. So this is the proposed map that we have. And we've been doing some basically protect our watershed canoe trips. We had a bike ride, our Environment Hamilton, they biked all the way to our farm and we fed about 60 people. And then we had a canoe ride with RARE higher up in the Grand River watershed in Cambridge. This is the RARE canoe, basically protect our watershed canoe trip that we had. And this is the one that we just had yesterday. It was very, very balmy and warm, and we went down from Beach Road. We went down to the Newport Bridge area. So the province did write to us in December to the two different councils, to Brantford Council and Brant County Council. And in that letter, they did suggest, they pointed to Crombie's report, where Crombie is saying some areas need to be de-designated, and they used that specific wording. They referred specifically to the points that talked about de-designating land that communities, municipalities had hoped to develop. In fact, that they suggested this will reduce urban settlement boundaries. So we're calling for a moratorium on development and asking, because of all these mapping needs, the province is saying it needs to do the mapping, but the mapping's not complete. So we're saying if the province doesn't have their mapping complete, then let's put a moratorium on the boundary agreement. We know that the minister is approving, or is not approving, I stand corrected. The minister is reviewing that right now, and so we're asking the minister not to put a moratorium on that until all of this mapping is done. And we have a lot of mapping resources for them that we'll gladly share. So, thank you.
Councillor Miller?
One comment, one question. Senior planner's name is Brandon.
Oh, great. I apologize. I apologize.
And you used it about 10 times.
I'm sorry.
The question is, like, the intensification targets, do you think we can get to the provincial number without resorting to high rises and those high rise condos? Like, if you drive down Lakeshore Boulevard there in Toronto, like, that's all you see. Yeah, and I don't know if those would be suited to Brant, but you know what I mean? Do you think you think we can reach the provincial targets without those?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and yes, I do. Just go and look at Europe and look at how they intensify without having concrete jungles. So,
Councillor Palmer?
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, of the presenter, I was wondering, Alan, if you could go back a few slides when you said you had those comments, because you know I like to ask that question, so.
sure.
Of those letters, I was curious how many of those 88 for and 12 against were farms sole supported by farming activities? Because as you know, Greenbelt is supposed to protect farmers, so I was wondering if you had that number for me. How many of those 88% for and 12 against were farmers supported solely by farming activities? Thank you.
Okay, I can't comment on that because people didn't self-identify. So farmers didn't self-identify, and neither did, the writers didn't self-identify. You have all the letters. You have all the data. You know, perhaps we could go back and ask them. You have the contact, but for us, it's blotted out. We can't see their contact info.
Well, then, if I could, I was surprised, actually, when I read through all those letters, how many of them were actually just kind of a form letter that seemed to have been sent out by someone and just add your name to it. And as I've been taught before, if you're trying to gain the interest of a politician, you have to significantly change that letter in order to get it in the interest. And I didn't see that in a lot of those letters, so I think some of those numbers are kind of skewed, just because a lot of them would be coming from people who don't really have an interest, but were just said, could you do this for me, or something like that.
Yeah,
But
good
I'll leave
point.
it there.
I think, though, we've moved on. We have this information, and at the time, we weren't talking at all about the water and a blue belt. So we're trying to introduce new information to you as well. These people responded then, and those were the written comments, and that is the analysis from the Tutla Heights resident from Russ Kositz. But I would say I'd like to also look at the blue belt information, combine it.
So then if I could just ask one more question.
Okay.
If the chair will entertain me. What will a blue belt do to protect farming activities in the county of Brant? Because as you know, farming is the #1 industry in this municipality.
Yes. I'm fourth-generation farmer. We ran out of water this summer. We're a market gardener. We're at the market, and we ran out of water. I know I had this discussion with Mayor Eddy. He knows of people who've run out of water. It was a real severe drought this year. It made farming really tough. And so I think most of all, we need to look out for farmers' interests. We need to make sure there's enough water for farmers.
But as you know, if you go into Hamilton, it's very, very difficult for market gardeners to get permits to take water from the streams because of the green belt. So I would like to know exactly what your plan would do to help farmers in order to help them get more water to produce their crops if necessary.
Okay, well, we have to rethink how we farm. We're moving more and more towards permaculture, which is basically we're trying to farm with drought. We're trying to farm with climate change. So you're going to have different crops. You're going to have more trees in the field. You're going to have more perennials. So farmers, basically, climate change is a fact, and we have to adapt to that. But I don't know, I can't address water taking. I have to address how we deal with drought on the farm. We have to farm differently.
So what you're telling farmers in the county of Brant, that with your proposal is you're hoping to take a significant chunk of their way of life away
Not at all.
for
Not
those
at
who do
all.
a lot of watering.
No, not at all. No,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Councillor Chambers?
Thank you. Just for the record, so the record is clear, you began your presentation with the slide with your name on it. Are you representing yourself, or are you representing others? Because you're continually referred to our. You began by yourself, and then you transposed into other. I'm just wondering who is the presentation from?
Okay, as we work on the, I'm presenting as Executive Director of Sustainable Brand, but as we work, for example, with the last event that we had, if you go to the newspaper ad, you'll see how many groups signed on.
Just so the record is clear.
Yeah.
You
I'm
need to state
presenting
who you are representing.
from
so that
Sustainable
we know.
Brand. Yeah, but I would like to speak to, we vet it. We vetted the map by people, by Tutla Heights folks, by CCOB, by different communities, to let them see the map. That's how we even drew the map. We went to different communities.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just want the record to be clear on who you are speaking for for the record.
Sustainable brand.
Sustainable brand. And I have a second question. Since that slide is up, you've concluded that a majority in our community are in favor of growing...
I did not conclude, no. I'm presenting Russ Kozic's data.
So the statement that is on the screen, a majority in our community are in favor of growing the green belt.
That's from his analysis.
Let me finish my question.
Okay.
The statement that is on the screen, a majority in our community are in favor of growing the green belt, is a submission by someone who you're not naming based on the letters that were analyzed that you're referring to. Is that correct?
Russ Kozic's came to this conclusion from analyzing all of the written submissions.
Let me ask you then,
Yeah.
do you believe that a majority in our community are in favor of growing the green belt, and on what do you base your
Okay,
submission?
I would say the majority of people will be in support of the Blue Belt, and it will be because people treasure water.
No, you're not answering my question.
I'm talking Blue Belt.
I'll let it go at that. You didn't really answer the question. Maybe maybe the question was not clear, but you didn't answer my question.
Okay.
You
Then I would like
pivoted
to...
to your own submission rather than answering my question.
Okay. I would like to clarify that I believe the majority of the residents in the room right here today, and those sending in letters, really want the Blue Belt and support protecting water.
That's possible to understand that. I think the only real way of determining the majority are in favor of the green belt or the blue belt or whatever belt would be to have a plebiscite where people have the opportunity to actually vote on an issue that they're voting. And the blue belt, I have never seen pink land and blue land beside green land, and ours is greener. However, we'll let that go by. By the way, I've been reminded by our CAO that the presenter was Brandon Hassan.
Yes.
Brandon is his name, and he did an excellent job. Thank you. Now, where were we? I believe Councillor Coleman had, no, you did not have a question. Councillor Wheat, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Councillor Simons.
I've had my
Okay.
hand up for an hour.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Mayor.
did not see your hand at any time. Please proceed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Ella.
Yeah.
My question is, you mentioned moratorium on boundaries. You're requesting, are you asking us to put a moratorium on the boundaries? Are you planning,
No.
or have you taken this to the Brantford Council to get their request for this also?
We're not asking you or Brantford Council. We feel that it's out of your hands. We're asking the province.
So you're asking the province to put a moratorium on the
Yeah.
boundaries?
Yeah.
That's which,
Okay, thank you.
who knows what they'll do? I don't. So you've completed your presentation. Thank you. Were there any other questions? If not, is there another presenter at this time that wishes to speak to council? Realizing that we're still in the education session, of course, correct? Is there any other person that would like to comment? If not, I want to thank you for attending. Yes, sir, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I won't be able to hear you back there. Pardon?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I didn't talk to them.
Hi there, my name is...
Welcome, please advise who you are and
Yeah, that's what I was
proceed when
gonna
you're
do.
ready.
Exactly, thank you. My name is Martin McDermott. I live out on Sour Springs Road, and I've made contact with some of the Mohawk workers. And anyhow, I was wondering about the consultation process with First Nations people. And,
The which process?
yeah, consultation
Oh,
processes
consultation process.
with First Nations peoples. And I know that you had met with the workers at one point to discuss, as they had an interest in any kind of future land transfers. And you had signed the document, I believe, that indicated that you would consult with these people before you engaged in any further transfers or boundaries.
And your question is?
Did you sign any document?
I do not recall that.
Okay.
We will check it. What is, do you have a question or not?
Okay, yes. I live on the Birch Track.
Pardon?
The
On
Birch Track? Yes.
You live on the Birch Track?
I live on the Birch
Yes,
Track,
okay.
yes.
I'm aware of it.
Okay. The Birch Track was never ceded to...
We're not getting into land claims.
Okay, all right.
this
But the
time.
point is
That's not our
that
purpose.
it is still an important point that we bring to the table these people as well and make sure that they are invited. I don't believe
Sorry,
anybody
sir,
is here.
this is not the purpose of this meeting.
Oh, I saw
the-
something up there that said First Nations.
Sorry, the purpose of this meeting was to discuss, have presented to us a planning report on what our dear province is
Right.
endeavoring to do.
And the ecological concerns of
And
these
that's what it's
people is
about.
very...
And your,
important.
any other group has the opportunity to comment it and send it in as well as us.
Right.
So,
Okay. So strategy of land use does change when you transfer boundaries, am I correct?
Pardon?
Strategy of land use is inevitably going to change when you transfer boundaries from county to city.
That's not before us. That
Okay.
will be before the province of Ontario.
And when is that meeting coming up?
I have no idea. I don't know whether there will be a transfer approved or not. I am completely in the dark.
Okay, so a lot of this is
So you should
contingency.
contact the Minister of Municipal Affairs. He'll be able to tell you. His staff are in charge.
Okay, I'm not getting much response from Dave Levac, and I made responses or information to him. I had an hour-long meeting, actually, with him.
McMeekin is no longer the minister. He was the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Who was that?
McMeekin, did you say
McMeekin.
that name?
No, Dave Levac, I said.
He's our provincial member.
That's right, yes,
Brant.
sir. I met with him, and he's
Fine.
he's as reconciliatory as well as most of us are in trying to move this forward with not only, First Nations issues, but land use policy, and that these people need to be involved. And I just request that you do send out invitations to the right people to have them involved in these discussions.
I'm not trying to limit your views or what you want to discuss, but I have to follow the agenda for the meeting. And that
Okay.
is what we arranged the meeting for. This is a special meeting of council to hear others, if they wish to be heard, about the provincial growth plan. So that's what we have.
Yeah.
And there's a copy of that available if you wish to take it with you.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to speak? As I said, thank you. I hope that you've found it educational. I apologize for being late in arriving. Thank you for attending. I believe that concludes the meeting, unless there is any other matter that the council wishes to record under this heading at this time. If not, thank you for attending, and this part of the meeting is closed. Thank you for your attendance. Now, are we going into... CBC.